Finally, the moment's ripe to build my vise, my fingers itching to start shaving wood with glee. But as fate would have it, a side quest sneaks in. My little one's leg lies broken, balance betraying her, crutches proving too cumbersome. No walking frame fits her diminutive dimensions. So let's craft a creation, custom-made for her needs. As always, I begin with a brisk sketch. With drawing done, I dart to the workshop, diving into my pile of offcuts. Large leftovers linger from last week's table endeavour, a bit burdensome for this task, but they'll do the deed. Nasty knots need nixing to ensure the walker's structural integrity stays strong. I whittle away the wood's woes until 12 terrific 2x4 centimetre sticks stand ready. Switching to the jointer, I jive with the wood. Though these offcuts seemed flat at first glance, they've shifted shape, less level than anticipated. The jointing jaunt proves more necessary than mere peace of mind. The thickness's turn transforms the timber, creating perfectly square and even sticks. Given the petite proportions of these pieces, precise parity is paramount. For each stick, I square one end and set the stop on my fence, ensuring exact lengths. A fine finishing blade bestows a beautifully clean cut. There we are, 12 sticks standing tall, ready for mortising's embrace. Floating tenons will find their home, with the domino drilling the mortises. This marvel of German engineering cuts so cleanly, so consistently, so rapidly, that it almost feels like cheating. What would have taken an afternoon by hand is done in mere minutes with this mechanical maestro. Mortises cut, I plug in the dominoes as floating tenons and attempt a dry assembly of the side frames, perfect fit like a glove. Once assembled, I mortise the sides for the front rails. The domino dances less delightfully in this position. Perhaps a future project, crafting a stand to use it as a stationary sentinel. The age-old adage rings true. When the machine outweighs the wood, bring wood to machine. When it's smaller, machine meets wood. Given our petite pieces, a stationary setup would have been more comfortable. The dry assembly reveals dominoes too long for their lodgings. Time to fire up the bandsaw and trim them down in a jiffy. Glue-up time arrives swiftly, this project progressing at a pleasant pace. The quality of the joints makes assembly a breeze, stress-free and smooth. I take my time, carefully coating each floating tenon with an even layer of adhesive before pressing it into its mortise. The fit is snug enough to hold itself, but clamps still come into play, ensuring everything solidifies in its proper place. Before gluing the front rails, I apply a quick round over with the shaper, softening edges for my little one's hands and shaving off a smidgen of mass. A couple of hours pass and I sand the side frames, starting at 80 grit and finishing at a fine 120. These frames then receive the same round over treatment as the front rails, looking lovelier and feeling far smoother to the touch. As before, the glue up goes swimmingly. The elements are light, the joints tight, a woodworker's delight. It's not always this effortless, I must admit. A few final clamps ensure it stands straight and true. The finishing touch, rubber feet to prevent slips and slides. Admittedly, this might be the least practical walker in the world, but at least she can move, and her smile speaks volumes of satisfaction. Now, onto the vise, for real this time. No time to waste. I cut the wood to the required dimensions, simple work matching the workbench width. Milling commences, starting with jointing to achieve 2 faces flat and square. Then the planer performs its part, providing an even thickness throughout. Pondering the perfect position for the vise, I've heard tales of off-center placement for centered wood or a larger grip on vertical planks. Unsure of the ideal, I opt for dead center. Attaching it with quick clamps, I crawl underneath to pre-drill, perhaps unnecessary given the softness of the pine frame, but the substantial lag screws seemed to warrant at least a small guide hole. My socket wrench makes quick work of fixing the vise firmly to the workbench frame. It's not going anywhere, though I'll check in a few months if tightening is needed. Next, I clamp a plank in front of the vise base to mark the necessary holes. As they say, don't measure if you can avoid it. Marking always proves more accurate. To the drill press I go, boring the marked holes with precision. A first assembly attempt fits like a glove, everything aligning perfectly. Satisfied with the result, I pre-drill and screw the front panel to the workbench. Given that all force applied will simply press the panel against the workbench side, I'm not overly concerned about movement. The planks for the outer jaw sport some sapwood, so I ensure it faces inward, leaving only heartwood exposed. A spray of WD-40 in the nut and holes ensures the vise will slide with silky smoothness. Glue spreads on the 2 planks for the outer jaw, uniting them into one robust piece. Everything comes together for the near final assembly. I grab a round bar of pine to tighten the jaw, but as I start to apply serious pressure, it snaps. Clearly not the best wood for the job. So, I screw the front jaw in place, add clamps to ensure even gluing, and set off to find a more suitable handle material. An oak piece catches my eye, perfect for this purpose. It's adorned with white paint, but nothing my jointer can't remove in seconds. Cut to size, I start rounding all 4 sides with a router bit. A quick sanding later, and the bar stands ready for action. Oh, look at that! A new apron graces my workshop attire, quite the dapper addition. With the glue now dry, I attempt to scrape it clean. The blade seems ineffective. Let's switch to the low angle plane and see if it fares better. Indeed it does. Look at those lovely shavings curling away. Isn't this the pinnacle of woodshop pleasure? Not wanting the jaw to extend fully to the side's end, I mark its stopping point. A trip to the table saw and a deep round over later. Now, for the most daring cut of my career, a vertical slice on a moving workbench. OSHA would have a field day. Final assembly time arrives, and this time the handle holds strong, but it clatters to the ground when left alone, annoying to say the least. So I fashion a couple of cubes to fix the handle to the vise. Opting for safety over perfection, I use the small belt sander to round these pieces rather than risk life and limb with a router bit. A countersink hole drilled, followed by a normal screw hole, and they're ready for installation. Screws in place, I apply some wax to the oak handle, reveling in its smooth, luxurious feel. But as I install the handle, a realization dawns. I didn't consider its length. It's far too long, bound to be a constant obstacle. No matter, back to the table saw to shorten it. Then another round of screwing and installing. Ah, much better. Now that's a workable size. Time to trace lines from the workbench holes to the Vise front jaw, marking spots for dog holes. With a vertical jig and a Forstner bit, I drilled holes corresponding to the lines, adding a small chamfer for easier insertion. To finish, I apply wax to the exterior jaw, leaving the interior raw. A slippery finish there would have been a grave mistake. At last, I take my first shaving in the jaw, and it's pure bliss, perfect for my needs, working wonderfully, both horizontally and vertically. Thank you for listening to this tale of wood and wonder. Until next time, may your projects be plentiful and your sawdust abundant.